All right.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Okay, let's stop that.
I know you wouldn't get it from here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm excited. Oh, yeah. Now listen, I'm not joking about this guy Coswell. I'm gonna tell you. So, movie, let's just go down to the review, man.
That's good. That's good.
All right. Come on. You just think.
All right, this is my chair, man. You brought the bronze with you. I did see come back down tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. The dude is 2 o'clock. All right, okay. And you know, no, you know, Uncle Bobby, I've been saying no. Ok, pessoal, todo mundo se vê esse vídeo na promoção, na Sheraton Hotel, Nan celebrate 7th anniversary. 7th anniversary, ça, c'est des paquets qui est relax, qui fait commencer, and there is a 2 more rooms where we're gonna stop the live for now and we're gonna go back and so once amazing show and we are live. Once you can Facebook, Instagram, not on TikTok, but so thank you so much. Stay tuned because we have a lot. Oh no.
I work on make DVDs.
Events, or you can accept on this table with them. And they're gonna let you.
What were you doing? I'm just curious.
Well,
Recording?
yes. Recording. Yeah.
Online?
Yes. I remember.
Oh, you were.
Yes, I remember.
Well, I'm getting to
Hi. Okay. I remember.
no, I'm from press.
Oh, you remember the
You can hold it up like flat. Like this.
What's that?
Oh yeah. Okay. No, this is good. I like this. Oh, you said it. Maybe I should turn the live off. Yeah, let me turn the live off. And maybe the stuff. That's perfect.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, I'll be quiet. I'm tired.
All right, so now
Implementing premiums for healthcare and implementing a two-tier wage system for new hires. What's at stake here and how are you mobilizing to start this?
First of all, thank you for having me, Reverend. I'm going to be here with the panel. I also give a shout out to my other Executive Vice President, Joseph Bryan, who's here attending this conference. And SAU represents the work that should keep us safe every day. The security officers, the cleaners, the folks who get the job done, but too often are left out and left behind. And under the Trump administration, the society, that's only more so. So the biggest contract we have is the one you mentioned, Reverend. It's the 34,000. We have New Yorkers here. Any New Yorkers here? All right, yeah, there we go. So the doormen, the porters, the concierges, the superintendent. Yes, they keep the buildings clean. Yes, they take out the trash, but it's deeper than that. They keep the systems working. They keep the buildings working. They're the folks that take care of the old folks. They might be the only person someone talks to in a whole day. And what they're fighting for is what so many Americans are fighting for, but all folks here on this panel are. But they're fighting for a fair wage, trying to make ends meet in the most expensive city in the world. They're trying to make ends meet in New York City. They're fighting to protect their health care. They're fighting to have a retirement. Most of our members put in decades of service because they truly love their jobs. And they're fighting to have a little bit of retirement when they're there. So we're fighting for all the bases. Our members are trying to live in New York, and we're just up against a set of employers. They're trying to break us down, take away what everyone's fought for. And it's just the same fight that folks here up against the Trump administration are fighting. It's just taking on a new thing. You have to remember there's a connection. Real estate industry folks who are here in New York are the same folks now running the country. And it's the same fight, same folks, and we're going to win if we're safe.
All right. Randy Weingarten, between book bans and the dismantling of the Department of Education, the pressure on educators and civil service are immense. And you know, AFG is just one the landmark First Amendment case. And but Randy, what is the political pressure that is needed to stop what is hitting the classrooms, hitting the school districts, hitting the school boards, and how do you see being able to effectively counter what they put on educators that are members of the AFT?
Thank you, Rev, and I'm so glad to be with the hometown crowd here. Oh my God, New York City should get more of a roar in New York City. So, I would say, I want to answer that in 3 ways. First, look, everything that shows up in society shows up in the classroom. And so everyone, and teachers, and it just take the issues around ICE. And I really, many of us carry a whistle around all the time. Our ICE training, we have more trainings in the union around how we deal with ICE than probably trainings these days about how to eat. Think about what that says. Because what's happening in so many cities, particularly areas that have a mayor that happens to have a Democrat, next to his or her name, it's creating fear and anxiety. And you see that in schools and hospitals. So it was the book bans, and now it's this, and at one time it was the mask. It's all about creating that kind of division and undermining the public purpose and the social purpose and the real purpose of schooling, which is the purpose of how we equip young people and not so young people with the skills and knowledge they need to have a better life. But that gets me to the second and third way I want to just answer this question is to piggyback on what my brother here said. And look, I just want to say for a second, I am this guy over here and I he started as a trustee of DC 37. The same week I started as president of UFT. February 1998. That's how many years we have been working with each other. That's how many decades all of us have been working with each other. Yeah. And the point about voice and coalitions is so important. But I want to bring it to a different level. Think about how we, people, middle class, working class, poor folk, have power in the United States of America. It's education, it's labor, frankly, it's faith, and it's politics. And think about how the Trump administration is trying to go after all of that. Defund schools, make teachers, try to demonize teachers, try to demonize books, try to kill unions, and try to take our rights of a free and fair election. And so part of what we have to do in terms of coalition building, as the Rev said, is none of us can do this alone. If we don't work in coalition, if we don't go to the courts together, the court of public opinion together, the Congress together, work on Congress together, then we are never going to beat these billionaires who don't give a you-know-what about any of us in this room. And so that kind of voice at work, that kind of voice of democracy is really important. It's kind of what King said about chaos versus community in his last book. And the last thing I'll say is this. We can't accept the status quo. That is where the anger resides. We as a labor movement, we as NAN, we as a union representing school teachers, We have to be about strengthening, not abandoning public schools. We can't be just about protecting public schools. We have to be about strengthening outcomes for all kids. We have to be about strengthening democracy for everyone. And we got to be about making sure, as me and all my colleagues said, that every working person has the access to a union, the access to good retirement security, good health care, and really ensure that they can provide their families a better life. So we have to be about a future even as we're fighting these battles.
I want to go all around. I know we got time, but I'm in charge, so I can break the rules. One of the things that has pushed this country forward and resisted it going backward is mass mobilization. And I want all of you to take a minute and tell me how you think we can effectively at this house, under the intimidation of this administration, mobilize and move forward anyway. I had the occasion to have breakfast the other day with Senator Brother Schlossberg, who's running for Congress. And not that I'm supporting his candidacy, but he's running for Congress. Not that I'm going to bring it up, but he's running for Congress. And he and I had breakfast, and we talked about his grandfather, President John F. Kennedy was his grandfather. And I told him, and we had a discussion, that all of what happened, that A. Philip Randolph and others did, started in the Kennedy administration that led to him being demonized. And he was assassinated in November of '63. We passed the Civil Rights Act of '64 based on what he had really started, Lyndon Johnson finished. How do we mobilize that kind of unity with labor and civil rights and others today that worked well in the '60s? You got to remember, Dr. King and President Kennedy never had a cell phone. That's right. Never had Twitter. Never had Facebook. So they took rotary phones and changed American history. And we have all these ways to communicate and have nothing to say. I mean, can't get 4 people together to a block association. What do we need to do?
Start with me, Red? You starting with me? Okay. Well, the points that you made needs to be understood that everyone did not have, they did not have the conveniences that we're living with now. So our excuses ought to be far and few between for how we communicate. I often hear you say that we have to talk with people rather than talking at people. That remains one of the most solid pieces of information that I've received in a long time. Because back then, you know the person in your neighborhood who was the nosiest one, right? Now you know if you want to pass along the word, you know who to go to, and you tell them, now don't you say nothing. It's guaranteed to get out before you can get out the yard. We have to use that common sense that he reminds us of all the time to get the stuff done. A part of it too, I'll quote you because you taught a lot of us a lot of stuff. You told us that when we talk, we play.
That's right.
And that's real easy to follow. You taught us that if somebody does something, congratulate them for doing it, don't take all the credit yourself. Because otherwise, why they gonna show up for you to come and do something if you don't never recognize them? You taught us in a room full of folks who were very important that same message, and it has worked ever since for those of us who listen to what you were teaching us then. I'm going to ask you as you sit in your seat, reach over to the person next to you, pat them on the shoulder and say, I see you. ain't nobody found. They want to say hello anyway. Tell them I see you, I appreciate you, I know how hard you work. Know that they mean something to you. Now that's how prayer teaches us to do stuff. And if we listen to the lessons that we're getting from one another, we can make some stuff happen. But also, what National Action Network has told us is don't work in no silo. If we're doing something, don't think that it's only us that you have to do it. We need to partner with people. Randy had her book stuff going. What I did was beg her to give us some books, and wherever APRI was going, we would share those books and share the message. We did it all over the country for every place we went. We didn't take the credit for it. We said that AFT saw this initiative, and while they were threatening their sister over there, who may be short in stature but stand 9 feet tall in her courage, all right? She stood up to them and said, you will not dictate what our history will be when we start to teach about our history, or the importance of all of us that are out there. We can't work in those silos, but we have the same relationship with LIUNA. Red called on us to be a part of the march here, the march on Wall Street. He don't ask you to come and tell you, right? So I called the brothers and sisters here in New York and said, look like y'all have to turn out some folks so we can show up. By the time we got here and got in line, Red was bossing me around and all people from LIUNA and everywhere else would be lying in the street on that march on Wall Street. Right? So using those resources. When we did the pieces with AFT, as I mentioned before, when we did the pieces with the example that we set out with AFSCME, because they had a meet, greet, lead machine. Lord Jesus, those are the rowdiest folks I know. And you want to be with them when you get the street. And if you are, you know you're going to get some stuff done. But you can name union after union. If we learn to be inclusive and acknowledge the work of others, we do a better job. So, Rev, to answer your question, we've got to be inclusive.
Eric?
Everything she said, not much left. Realistically, as the rep said, during that time, they only had rotary phone, piece of paper, flyer. And it's really ironic that we have all this social media and the lies are being told on social media. And you know, where do people go back and get their information? They go to the comments. The social media, they don't go for Twitter facts. So it goes back to Lisa on it comes back to talking to each other. Okay, all right? As you said, you know, how they grow their 100 million, that comes back to knocking each one of those boards, having those one-on-one conversations, challenging the issues before them, okay? But we can't depend on social media. As Rev said, sometimes we can't even get 5 people in the room. Okay, all right? But if you give me some way free, they'll be there. Okay? They'll be there in a minute. All right. So it comes down to communication, and it's not going to take one time. You're going to have to constantly speak to them. Bring our young people around who believe in social media before they believe in growth. Okay, all right. But everything else, this young lady said, is how we're going to do it. All right.
Thank you. Second, third, we all are saying, but I can also just add, one of the things that our union is proud of is the organizing work we've done to give respect and dignity to security officers, and we could not have done it without the partnership with National Network and union. So we appreciate that. And we recently passed legislation here in New York City that will raise the wages, provide health insurance, and give benefits to not just the 20,000 unionized security officers, but all 50,000 security officers, whether they're in the union or not. And we did that not through mass mobilization, but through the partnership and coalition work. Yes, there were people, there were security officers, but I think we shouldn't underestimate the power of the people in this room, the power of unions, the power of people coming together to fight for what's right, and I think we can make change.
I think if we don't believe that we can do things, then we're not going to do it. we have to believe in ourselves, that there's a possibility of a better future. We have to believe in each other, as Clay just said. And I think we have to create the infrastructure, like the March on Washington did in so many years ago, like the No Kings movement is doing. The No Kings movement is not the coalition for everything on everything. But what it is about is people looking at each other and saying, I am not alone in having misgivings about what's happening in this country right now. And there's a whole lot of other people who are also having misgivings and are willing to, in a non-violent way, be on the streets and do that. And so could you imagine if we had even a bigger, bolder coalition led by Rev, led by so many others, led by labor, led by democracy organizations, led by the civil rights organizations. And in September or October of this year, we have 15 million people on the streets, and then we do the mutual aid we need to do to get to the ballot box and win in November. So a belief in ourselves and in each other that we have the capacity to change, creating that organizational structure, and then doing what we have to do at the ballot box to actually have a better country.
Last but not least, board member, national board member, and the man our president last week,
Well, I think it's real simple what we have to do. We have to organize, mobilize, educate, make our voices heard, get in the streets, and raise hell every single day. I mean, that's what we've got to do. We cannot accept what's going on in this country right now. We cannot be on the defensive all the time. We can't play whack-a-mole with a fool in the White House. Okay? We can't do that. We can't do that. You know, Reverend mentioned this in opening up this panel discussion and talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If you can think about back then, sick and tired of being mistreated by the boss. They saw one of their own crushed in the sanitation truck because he was trying to get out of the bad weather. And there was a mechanical malfunction when he got into the truck, in the back of the truck, and it crushed him to death. And the city refused to recognize those men who provided those services every single day as human beings. You know what? It's kind of reliving that right now. You know, I don't want to compare what happened in Memphis to what's occurring to us now. But what I will say is that we've got to be bold, and we've got to have the strength, and we've got to have the fight within us to do exactly what those sanitation workers did. They said, hell no, we aren't taking it anymore. And we want to fight back, and we want to make our voices heard. And guess what? When they did that, and then when they stood up, people came and supported them and rallied around them. Dr. Martin Luther King, our community allies and friends, and saying, this is not just a fight with sanitation workers. This is about a fight for dignity, a fight for making this country what we all want to see it to be. And because of that coalition coming together and fighting together, we were able to win in the city of Memphis at a great cost. At a great cost. But we've got to have that same spirit. We've got to have that same energy right now. And I'm asking everyone in this room, we cannot play on the defensive all the time. We've got to get on the offense. And that's exactly what we will do. And we will get on the offense. And if we do it the right way, we will win
Manufactured, and of course, to our Cleola Brown, our real Queen Elizabeth, to give them all, in every form of national American Federation of Government. I'm gonna bring back legal. I want to go to criminal justice. And then my last thing, and I'm gonna let y'all be ready for the dinner tonight, is Roy Conner, the congressman that's really been dealing with the Epstein files and the victim. But do a fireside chat before I let you go for today to get ready for the dinner tonight. Roy Conner's coming in to be with us. So give me 2 minutes and I'm gonna get out. All right, well then bring him on. Let me have Ben Crump bring on our legal panel of criminal justice, my friend, brother Ramanuchi. Now, let me say this as, where's Alan? We got our own vice chairman of the board, Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin. And she's vice chairman of the board. And of course, Ben Crump, Attorney General of Black America. And Attorney Ramanuchi, who, don't worry about the sign, I'm in charge. I want y'all to know, Attorney Ramanuchi worked with Ben and therefore us that were coordinating in the community on George Floyd's case. And he's now one of the attorneys for Renee Good's family that was killed in Minneapolis. And he changed his travel plan to be with us today. But he's not one of those that you're going to see. He doesn't call me to get on TV, but he's in the trenches doing real work. And I saw him, I mean, every day, huddling there with Attorney Crump, getting us through, which got convictions, by the way. And clearly, we're honored to have him and Jenny and I on it, because I can't say we're honored to have Jenny, because this is organization vice chair. Y'all don't take these Kennedy pictures, I'm having a session. Yeah, all right. Come here a minute, Jack. Since everybody want to take your picture, I'm gonna let you down there. This is President Kennedy's great grandson.
Hey everybody, I'm so happy to be here. You know, I got to meet Reverend Sharp and speak to him over breakfast a couple days ago. And I mean, this person does not get tired. I don't understand. You are doing so much more than anyone that I know to advance the cause of civil rights. You did it my whole lifetime. You did it a whole lifetime before I was born, and you're still doing it. And you know, it just gives us all, young people especially, someone to look up to, an example to learn from. And I just really, it's great to be here. I don't want to take too much. I'd much rather hear from the panel than from me, but I'll say I'm running for Congress. You're sitting in the district that I will represent. And our campaign slogan is believe in something again. As Randy Weingarten was saying, we don't believe in anything anymore. How are we going to solve problems if we don't believe in ourselves? I still believe in politics. It's broken, but I still believe. Reverend Sharp said something to me over breakfast that really stuck with me. And he said, President Trump was trying to dismantle the 60s and everything that was fought for the civil rights movement. And you know, we forget this sometimes, but President Trump made DEI illegal. He made diversity illegal on his first day in office. He made it illegal to have diversity programs. We got to see this for what it is. We have to stand up, organize, and you know, I'll leave it at that. But I'm so happy to see all of you here today, and I hope you have to meet you. So thanks.
Let me say, Nan is a non-profit organization. Any of the folks here? All right, good. So we shared up who showed up. I always believe you showed up or who shows up with me. Give them a hand. Thank you for coming back. We're waiting for District Attorney Alvin Bragg. So if he comes, we'll break him up. You know, Reverend Al is kind of like the person who is not a lawyer, but he plays a lawyer on TV. He's a great co-counselor. Again, give it up for our civil rights leader, our champion of justice, Reverend Al Johnson. And as we begin this panel, we have about 30 minutes. So we're going to try to make up for time, so we're going to get right to the crux of the matter. But it really goes to what Dr. King said in his letter from the Birmingham jail. You know, everybody knows the part, Attorney Robert Nucci, where he says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But I submit to you, sisters and brothers, I think equally important in that letter is when he said, just because they tell us it's legal, that doesn't make it right. And he said, we must remember that everything Hitler did to the Jews in Germany, they said was legal, but that didn't make it right. Dr. King said, we must remember that they said slavery was legal, but that didn't make it right. He said, we must remember they said segregation was legal, but he said that didn't make it right. And he said, everything they did to that little boy in Money, Mississippi, named Emmett Till, they tried to tell us it was legal. But we must in unison say, but that don't make it right. And I gotta tell you, sisters and brothers gathered at the Nan Convention Network Convention on April 8, 2026, it is a lot of stuff that this Trump administration is trying to tell us it is legal. But we must all stand up in unison and say, but that don't make it right. Amen? So we begin there with incredible panel of extraordinary lawyers. As Reverend Sharpton said, Tony Robert Nucci is our brother from another mother. He is one of the leaders of the trial lawyers, head of the congressional delegation to elect lawyers that uphold the Constitution, elect politicians that believe in the Constitution. He, with my co-counsel, George Floyd, where we got historic justice. We fought for both of Jane. Y'all remember the young boy who was shot in his own apartment when the white police woman came in and they said, you know, she was mistaken, and then she said 70 minutes after she killed him. Well, we got a $98.5 million verdict on that case. That was great work of our legal team. And now we're fighting for justice for Tyree Nichols. Again, Tony Robert Nucci. And as Reverend Al said, she is the vice chair of the National Action Network Board, CEO. She is a force of nature, and as I've always said, Jennifer, it's always brilliant black women who make us brothers look better than we ought to look. So thank you for all taking off the black men around you look good. Thank you, Jennifer. And so with that, we're here because April 26th is not April 2025. 2 years into this Trump administration, things have changed. Some changes you see on the news, but most you don't. On this stage, we will have a district attorney join us. We have a community policy leader in Jennifer, and we have a civil rights lawyer in Tony Robert Nucci and myself. They work inside the system every day. They will tell you what is real, not what sounds good on stage. The first question for the panelists, and everybody can tell it from their own perspective, is tell us one thing the Trump administration has done since 2025 that made your job hard. And you can say, I know you got several, but just give us one or two things, Mr. Ramanujan.
Thank you, Ben. And you understand why I walk in this man's shadow. I am so honored to be here, Ben, and everybody from the National Action Network. Thank you so much. So my one word, and then I'll explain, is zero. Zero. Zero investigations, zero prosecutions, zero cooperation when it comes to federal law enforcement officers. Have they made the job more difficult? You bet they have, because without investigations, they create hurdles for us to seek justice. And as Ben and I like to do when we crisscross the country representing people who have been aggrieved by police officers, shot, killed needlessly, had their constitutional rights violated, we seek civil justice, criminal justice, administrative justice, legislative justice. We seek all prongs of justice. And when somebody puts a brick on your ability to investigate what you know is wrong, Ben was talking about legal but not right. How about illegal and never right? Right? Illegal and never right. And when you can't investigate, that's what makes our job more difficult. It does not make it impossible. It just makes it more difficult. Illegal and never right. That makes sense, Mr. Administrator. Jennifer?
The fact that Donald Trump has taken an axe to pretty much any and all programs that advance opportunity for people in communities of color, for low-income people, that has been the greatest challenge. And why? Because in this nation, we know that if you do not have economic security, if you do not have the ability to take care of your family, you're going to struggle. And one of the things that people don't often know and appreciate is that research demonstrates that in America, 40% of crimes are attributable to poverty. Now, that doesn't mean that poor people are more likely to commit crimes because they're bad people. It means that a lot of crimes are happening because people can't meet their basic needs. Right? If you can't buy bread and you need to feed your family, you might resort to something you otherwise would not do. Right? You have access to a credit card in your workplace, but you can't afford to buy your children clothes at school time. I'm not excusing it, but 40% of crimes are attributable to poverty. 80% of people who are incarcerated in America self-identify as having little or no income. So when we have a president who takes an axe to critical income support programs, when he cuts off DEI, when he cuts back on college access, eliminates the ability to get student loans for graduate school, and cuts back on the repayment opportunities, the loan forgiveness afforded people in communities of color in the main. When you see all that happening, an erosion of medical benefits, food supports, what does that do? It makes vulnerable people all the more vulnerable. And in this society, we don't really talk about it. We talk about race. Programs and funding that helps people to build economic mobility and opportunity is essentially put more of us on the pipeline to being justice and government.
Amen. The cost of justice. Thank you for breaking it down, Jennifer. You know, sisters and brothers, I'm not shy about it, that Tony and probably every civil rights lawyer who had
fortune of having Reverend Al counsel us. We tell you he's one of our best co-counselors, even though he ain't got a law degree. And I call on him frequently and often in the middle of the night sometimes. And I want to call on him while we have him sitting on the panel. Reverend Al, you taught me very early on why we needed to have the federal Department of the Justice involved, especially fighting in southern states for marginalized people, especially Black and brown people. Can you share with National Action Network conference why you think the deficit in the federal Department of Justice is so devastating to us today?
Well, I think one of the reasons, and I didn't know sitting here was getting me back in trouble, but anyway, one of the reasons that it is so important, particularly in civil rights and in National Action Network. National Action Network was started in 1991. I'll give you an example, which will explain what I'm answering your question. In that year, we were helping to fight the case of Rodney King in LA. Rodney King had been beaten by police, LAPD, on tape. A guy who didn't know him, just happened to be filming, a white citizen. And if it hadn't been for the tape, God only knows what they had said about Rodney King. The beating of Rodney King led to riots in LA. And we went out and joined some of the activists in demanding justice. And we was also saying that we need nonviolent protest, was playing into the violence to only make it look like they want. They want to say Rodney King was out there doing wrong, makes it look like Rodney King was doing that. We fought the case. We got all the way into the state court. Finally, the police were prosecuted. But local politics kicks in when you deal in state level. It happened to us in New York with several cases. Because local state judges, local state juries are different. So you always went to the federal courts when the state courts were too politicized against you. And we lost the case. Those police were acquitted of beating Rodney King, even though the whole world saw the videotape. They said, "Don't believe your lying eyes." And they acquitted them. We went to federal court and convicted 2 of those police because the federal court took supersede. And this is what we did 30-some odd years. When Trump in office appointing the federal judges and having the federal prosecutor, the attorney general, it has taken that option off the table. So as we sit here April 8, 2026, we have nowhere to go on any of these cases. Because you cannot say if the state fails as we go to the feds won't even pick up an investigation. Amen. Because they are committed to not deal with civil rights. He has said that. We're not making this up. He said that. So that's why I tell people that if they come to November, you're not voting for a Democrat or voting for a candidate. You're voting for your own self-protection. Amen.
And just a quick follow on that right now, because it's breaking news everywhere. Obviously, we saw what they did in Louisville, Kentucky, when the Department of Justice petitioned the federal judge to dismiss the charges of the officers who were convicted federally for killing Breonna Taylor. And now we're dealing with a case just as close with Tyree Nichols in Memphis, because they're doing the same thing. Have you ever seen anything like this by the department or prosecutor saying, we got a conviction and now we saying we don't want to drop the charges?
No, it's never been done that I couldn't see, where they want to drop charges that were convicted, but jury convicted. And they say, don't worry about the jury. And they just undermine it. That is why I'm saying that this is not about winning an election with party united. They are undermining undermining everything that has been established to protect all of our rights. When a federal prosecutor or U.S. attorney or attorney general can negate a jury verdict, then we are not on our way to a totalitarian state. We almost there.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Al, for your leadership. Now,
where a judge could see that a jury misunderstood the facts and apply them to the law, and then will actually say this person is not, you can see they're not guilty. This is self-defense, or they were acting under duress, but not the flip, where this person should go home after you convict them.
We're living in, the intellectual justification of discrimination, because Reverend said, the gentleman didn't say this, I think they did it because they were black people who had got justice, and they want black people to believe that we can't get justice in America. And even though we can't go to the Department of Justice for help, we can come to the National Action Network to get help, to get justice for our people. Now more than ever. Now more than ever, we got to stand up, we got to be willing to speak up, and we got to be willing to fight for justice, because if we don't fight, they ain't gonna give us no inch of justice. We got to go take it. Amen. And Attorney Romanucci, as Reverend Al said, you represent our sister Renee Good and her family who was killed by ICE. Can you talk to us about the atrocities that you have seen that ICE has engaged in with the authority of this Trump administration?
Well, I can almost speak from it firsthand, because I am from Chicago, and Chicago was a part of what's called Midway Blitz, which is another one of the acronyms that they use to come in and have American troops invade our American cities. And so we were at ground zero for that. We were somewhat prepared. We represent a lot of people from Midway Blitz who had their civil rights violated by ICE and CBP and other federal law enforcement officers. But what they didn't realize is that you don't go into Minneapolis when it's cold. They learned a big lesson, because I guarantee you, they figured that they were going to go into Minneapolis and root out this so-called corruption that they found in the community, and think that they were going to do it under cover of night, except it was under cover of cold. And you don't mess with Minnesotans when it comes to cold, because guess who won that fight? You better believe it. I spent a lot of time in Minneapolis after Renee Good was shot, and it was a struggle for me to be outdoors, literally, for the hours that I was. But for the folks out there, they knew how to fight, and that's how they won. What we saw in Minneapolis is beyond literally atrocious. I mean, it is criminal what was going on there with ICE, how they were violating people's rights, not 1 time per day, 10 times per day, but hundreds of times per day. And what you see on the video, what happened to Renee Good, don't let anybody fool you. Don't let anybody gaslight you. Don't let anybody else tell you a cover story. You see exactly what you saw. Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Steve Miller, Todd Blanche, wipe those, whatever they said about what Renee or her fiance was, not true. Those words, which I won't even deign to repeat, DR, you know what it stands for, or DT, I apologize. Nothing even close to the truth. This was a mom dropping off her children back on the way home, and the temerity that they had to call her those words was really crime right there.
Hey, thank you so much, Tony. And like Reverend Al has said on many occasions, we stand for justice. It doesn't matter if the victim is black, white, brown, or red. We stand for justice and fight for civil rights for all Americans. So thank you. I will tell you this, as Black America's Attorney General, I try to live up to Reverend Al's proclamation. And it's real simple. What ICE is doing is a complete assault on the Constitution in every way. I mean, in every way. When you think about the assault on the First Amendment right to freedom of speech and right to assembly and right to the press. I mean, y'all saw they arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Ford for just trying to report on what their devious conduct was. And then you talk about the Second Amendment, they attacked that with our brother Alex Peretti when they said, you know, he was a law-abiding citizen, he had a license to carry a firearm, and you saw the 4 or 5 officers shoot him 10 times, even though he never reached for the weapon or anything. And what did they say, Jennifer? They tried to say, well, you can't have a gun at a protest. And we scratching our heads, Reverend Al, because Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old white teenager,
They fit to find, but they no find about you. Oh, nah, nah. They fit to buy, but they no buy about you. Buy about you. They fit to carry, they no carry about you. Carry about you. They fit to buy.